Welcome, everyone, to Season 6, Episode 3 of the Hall of Fame show. And I'm Kirk Buchner, along with Evan Nolan, and we run this joint, nothalloffame.com, along with the United States Athletics Hall of Fame. There's going to be some big news coming on that probably in a month, huh?
Yeah, I'd say about 6 weeks.
Yeah. We've created, Evan's actually created the ballot, where we're going to be sending to our special panel. And I know sometimes I'm known for my sarcasm. No, this is a special panel, guys. We've got Olympians, former NFL players, and we've reached...
And not just former NFL players. I mean, like, accomplished NFL players who are participating now. You picked up multiple-time Pro Bowler just earlier last week.
I think so. We'll know officially in a little while. But, yeah, I mean, some pretty decent names. You've gotten us a couple executives. We've got some broadcasters, some people legit in the know.
Yep.
And avid bloggers like ourselves. So I mean,
absolutely.
It's
who as we learned this week actually do know more about the sports than the writers who are covering them. So we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's just we're burying the lead because this is the big thing that we wanted to talk about, and a lot of us said we told you so.
Yeah, we've been telling people we told you so. And by we, I don't just mean Kirk and I. If any of you guys tuned in, was it 2 weeks ago now? We did our mock
committee,
our mock Hall of Fame election for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And during that election, we determined with 7 very good candidates, getting more than 2 or 3 people at 80% vote when you had to pick 5 out of 7 was 2 was it was easy enough. 3 was difficult because I think we did like over 80, and the third person was 75%.
Yeah.
And we had someone like 54 and 2 people at 50. And then we had someone else who's further down. But the idea of if you have 7 legitimate candidates, getting 5 of them through as somehow all of these electors believed or led to believe is nearly mathematically impossible. And so what happened with us was we had the top 2 got taken, who in our case, I believe were Adam Vinatieri and I can't remember who the other, I have that in front of me. I'll get that in a second. But our top 2 went, and then we took the third one because that was the way that things ended up going here. So my guess is the exact same thing happened to the voters here with who ended up getting in with the 3 of them. My guess is we got the first 2. We'll get to who they are in my opinion. Well, I'll just say that the 3 people who got in off the main vote were, I think the first 2, in my opinion, were Antonio Gates and Jared Allen.
I'd agree. And
then Eric Allen finished 3rd.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also think I want to be clear on this. This is not the fault of the voters. They didn't create this. This
is not the fault of the voters. Correct. I'll agree with the fact it is the fault of the voters that they didn't understand what they were
doing. Some of them openly
saying they understand, but the actual results of the vote, the voters were upset because if this had taken place last year, the same vote, 2 out of the next 4 guys, so that's Adam Vinatieri, Torry Holt, Willie Anderson, and who's the other one? Luke Kuechly.
Luke Kuechly, yeah.
2 out of those 4 are in the Hall this year. And we're looking at the class of the 3 guys we got, plus I'm just going to say Vinatieri and Kuechly. People are looking at this class entirely differently than they are now.
Absolutely. And we haven't even touched the seniors yet. The seniors / coaches /
and that's a disaster. If I were in some of those special committees, I'd be furious.
I'm sure they are. And I think that's sort of like why I want to make this caveat here. If you're upset at the voters, you're not as upset as the voters are. I guarantee that, especially like you said, some of the blue ribbon committees who put a lot of effort and a lot of time and to come up with their specific candidate only for them to have a mathematic probability of wasting their time.
Correct. Also, if there's one thing I've learned out of this is that football started in 1970. And anything that happened before that is not something the voters are interested in taking care of.
It does not appear like that's certainly going to be the case. And I guess we will just get right to it. First off, let's congratulate the 3 modern.
Absolutely. And you're not going to hear complaints from any of us at the three people who
No.
got it.
No, Antonio Gates, who I think you and I both thought was going to be inducted in the first ballot.
Agreed.
One of the best tight ends ever. So congratulations, Antonio.
And they still holds the NFL record for most touchdowns by tight end with 116. In fact, he has more touchdowns than any of the three receivers who were on the final ballot, in Steve Smith, Torry Holt, or Reggie Wayne. And he has it by a sizable number.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like that 100 touchdown total, I mean, it means a lot unless you're Sean Alexander.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. Oh, we'll get it. Sean Alexander's going to come up heavily when we talk about one of the candidates that get in coming up here. So,
yeah. So congratulations to Antonio Gates. Well deserved. And Jared Allen, you knew it was a matter of time. He was a finalist on year 1. He gets in year 5.
Yeah. And I am on record as saying Jared Allen is in my opinion, just over the line for a Hall of Famer. I think there are better choices on this ballot than Jared Allen, but I was fully expecting this was the year he was going to get in. There isn't really much. I mean, there's Terrell Suggs was on this ballot, but Suggs is in his first year, and I don't think it's such an overwhelming first ballot thought that it was going to block Allen from getting in. So this was the next up on the defensive line getting in, and again, I'm on record as not being the biggest Jared Allen candidacy person, but I'm not disappointed that he's in.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that. Allen was like a beast at what he did. I don't know that he was the most complete player, but we're nitpicking based on.
Yeah, I mean, he in many ways he's the modern day, and not that the other guy's so far away, but he's Kevin Green again to me. So. The late Kevin Green. Although I think I'd rather have had Green than Allen.
Yeah, that's actually a very good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, they were very, very similar players to me.
So. And both over the top and both exceptionally likable.
Yeah, both exceptionally likable. I did like the knock. Did you see the knock with Steve Hutchinson going to tell Jared Allen?
Yeah.
And Allen looks like both Hutch looked like he was like incredible shape too. Both of them look like they're in really good shape. But Allen was just like, yeah, he got me 20. He's like he's in a flannel shirt. He'd just come in from painting his chicken coop. Like it was kind of great. But yeah, again, congratulations Jared Allen. As someone who's been negative in all our things over the years forward, he deserves to be there. I've always thought someone else deserved to be there more. But I was fully expecting with this was an exceptional ballot for Allen because it was just Suggs. And again, Suggs is going to get in the Hall of Fame, but he's not somebody you have to put in first year.
Yeah, and dovetailing to that, we got Eric Allen who enters in year 19. So there's always one surprise for me. Not that I have a problem with it. I'm very, very happy for Eric Allen for career interception, 6 Pro Bowls, 3-time All-Pro with the AP, 1 first team, 2 second teams. But I'm guessing that a lot of the voters were probably sort of pushing one person aside because he was correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he was the one by far with the latest year in his candidacy.
Yeah, I mean his getting in as a result of Albert Lewis. So Albert Lewis, was it 3 years ago now, 2 years ago, 2023, finally got his first time being debated in the room on his 20th year, and did not make it in. And a lot of people were disappointed in that. Had he had more time, he probably would have. And then Lewis has been back now as one of the 9 finalists or 9 semifinalists for the seniors, both in 2024 and 2025. I feel they're going to try and get him back in. And good news for Albert Lewis is he played after 1970, so he has a good shot. But I don't think they wanted to repeat that. And he also had a huge backing of Deion Sanders, who is one of the happiest people in Hall of Fame land today because he got both a tiny class and the person he was pushing for at the same time in.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. That is this course correction, at least in their head, and I think they have to do a course correction to fix it.
Yeah, well, they're going to do it. They're going to come up with something in the middle. There's no way they can do it with next year. They're not going to have any of these. None of the other people on this ballot are going to get in if they don't, like, legitimately in the next 5 years, maybe one or two, if they don't course correct. If they keep this, it's going to be like Adam Vinatieri's, it's going to be 2034, and the all-time leading scorer is still going to be on the ballot when a lot of people thought he should have been the first time. So,
which is very possible. This is very possible. There's also, so before I go there, again, congratulations to all three.
And Eric Allen 100% deserves it. I'm glad, because when we went through our process, I'm digressing again here, but we went through our process, two of the people who barely missed out on our process, we elected Kevin Williams, who's never been a semifinalist. We elected Neil Smith, who was on his last year, who's never been in the room. And we barely missed out on both Ben Coates and Cornelius Bennett, both of whom were in their last year as well and have never been debated in the room. The fact that Eric Allen got through is a good thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely good thing. He absolutely deserves it, and he had a very good chance of falling into the abyss and never being heard from again.
And shout out to Cornelius Bennett, who saw Ron's presentation on him.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, Cornelius, if you happen to be watching our show, as a Patriots fan, I did the best I could for getting you there. I have to tell you, we had our final 7. We had 5 votes. My last vote came down between you and Ben Coates. I went with Coates, who I presented. And as a Patriot, had I gone the other way, you would have been one of our 5 people. That's how close the vote was, because we would have had a revote between him and Kuechly. And I think everybody would have gone, keeping Kuechly on the ballot, and gone with Bennett. So,
yeah. Also, too, I got a tweet from someone, and I didn't even put it together the day of, because they announced how this worked for the final group. There were 7 people, so they had to get 5 out of 7. What I don't remember them saying this before, that the 4 people who didn't get in, or whoever didn't get in on that group of 7, would automatically be finalists.
Yeah, none of us. I think that was a saving face move afterwards, in my opinion. Okay. They said our bylaws say this. None of us who
had
seen it, and again, not that we're the experts, but we have some people who. We're a very specific set of nerds, as I always say.
Yes.
And we had some people who looked into all of this, because that's kind of what they do, and never saw it there. And a lot of the voters also seemed surprised by that piece of information. But then again, they were surprised by the whole process, some of these folks.
Right.
So I honestly think that was a face-saving move. Like, hey, don't get too mad at us. Vinatieri, Kuechly, Willie Anderson, and
Torry Holt.
Torry Holt don't have to go through this process again.
Wow. They don't have to wait to see if they're a finalist, at least. So
they're going to have to go through the process.
Yeah. Well, I tweeted on the Thursday, so word's coming out, and they did a pretty good job in hiding the leaks of the people who got in.
They did.
For the most part. I mean, we thought that, hey, Isaac Bruce, your tweet made me think Torry got in. I don't know what the hell.
He's like, I think he's going to be hearing good news very, very soon, is what Isaac Bruce tweeted. And we figured Bruce would have been the person
who do the knock.
The knocks are done by Hall of Famers. We would have figured he would have done the knock, which is also why when Peyton Manning was on and said he didn't know if Eli had gotten in, we figured that Eli didn't get in, because I'd have a hard time believing that Strahan, for example, did the knock rather than Peyton for his own brother. That would have been too weird.
Yeah, and Peyton, who's got charisma up the wazoo for a country boy, right? He's great in those commercials. I thought he did a phenomenal job on Saturday Night Live when he was a host.
He did.
But yeah, well, he's not that great. That doesn't make him a good actor.
Agreed.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we saw here. But anyways, that day I said, looks like there's only 3 people, and unfortunately that's going to make a lot of legends wait a long time, which was agreed by Willie Anderson.
Willie agreed with you?
Yes, Willie commented on that. So I didn't even realize he was following me.
Well, Willie, we are big advocates for you. You and Richmond, who unfortunately is going to be in his last year, Richmond Webb, are 2 big people we talk about all the time. So,
and they were teammates, I believe, in Cincinnati for 2 years, because that's where Webb.
That's where Webb ended up. That's right.
Yeah. So when we look at these 4 who are now going to automatically advance next,
we didn't talk about the senior though.
Well, let's just do the whole modern process.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, I misunderstood what you said before. My bad.
Okay,
Continue.
all good. So the first thing that sort of comes out when I look at the four who didn't make it through is Torry Holt, mainly
Mhm.
because I'm thinking who we got coming up next. Yes,
Mhm.
you're going to be now a finalist again next year. Clearly, you're ahead of Reggie Wayne based on these cues that we've seen in the process.
Yeah, this was a bad year
Last
for
year.
Reggie Wayne.
It's a very bad year for Reggie Wayne, which will back up for there too. Fred Taylor too, once we get to him. But we've got now Larry Fitzgerald on the ballot next year. Torry Holt is great as much as I pounded the pavement for him.
No one's taken Torry Holt over
No.
no, over Larry Fitzgerald.
So he's the biggest loser of this, or the one who's got to wait a lot longer. I would
Yeah.
think. Keekly is going to get in. We know this.
Yeah, but as someone pointed out, like Kuechly should have been first ballot. Yeah, I thought Patrick Willis should have been first ballot too. It took him 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Kuechly and Willis are mirror images of each other in many ways. So I'm not shocked he didn't get in the first time.
Well, like I wonder if just like a couple people just said, okay, Keekly's going to get in, Vinatieri's going to get in. I'm going to throw a vote here to Eric Allen instead.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
And that's sort of why I wonder how I don't want to say leaped them a little bit, but Eric Allen is a deserving Hall of Famer. I've got Keekly far higher.
Fair?
Yeah.
Fair.
So, because you don't know what everyone else is voting for, they're also still doing it on Zoom. There's no.
Yeah, and that was another thing. We'll talk about that too.
Well, and that's where I think you can't have a lot of those collaborations, or maybe that's not the worst thing either. Where,
but in a situation like this, if they keep it, vote trading gets crap done.
Yeah.
If you don't want a class of 3 forever going forward, you're going to have to be like, hey, I'm not going to vote for Yanda this year, but you're voting for him next year. You understand? In order to get stuff going.
Yeah. I don't know. So Willie, I think, isn't really hurt by anyone coming in next year.
Pouncey.
Who, yeah, but is Pouncey automatically, you have him automatically that much higher than Willie?
I mean,
we're like, it's not the same conversation that we have with Fitzgerald over Holt.
I agree with that, but hold on. Let me just get Pro Football Reference here. Well, we're going to keep talking, and I'll give you the information in a second.
Yeah, so I mean, Holt seems to be out of that group. Yeah, I'm gonna. Great, I know I'm going to be a finalist next year, but who am I up against? And Reggie's still kicking around. Is still kicking around there if he can get through it all. And there's no guarantee with this loaded group coming up. We only took 3 names off of this.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be adding Breeze on the ballot, Fitzgerald on the ballot, Pouncey's on the ballot.
I mean, Geno Atkins is a possibility. LaShawn McCoy, Jason Witten, Frank Gore.
Witten and Gore, right. I think
Philip Rivers, guaranteed Hall of Famer from everyone I've ever heard because of his postseason play. Julian Edelman is up. I'm kidding on that. But I mean, even other, LaShawn McCoy, Stephen Gostkowski. I know that Vinatieri didn't get in, but I mean, there are other people here. David DeCastro, Mike Iapati, Des Bryant is here. Not all those guys are getting in, but they're at least going to have. So they'll all probably at least be nominated.
Yeah, I mean, like we're looking at a case where Geno Atkins probably won't be a semifinalist, and he had one hell of a career.
Mm-hmm.
So according to fall off.
According to Future Football Legends and the way they do things. Next year, according to how I can't remember how they get up with the legend score, but the number one person is Pouncey, followed by Breeze, followed by Atkins, Fitzgerald, Gostkowski.
It's
on how they do stuff.
It's a little lazy, but
it is a little lazy.
That's not just me sort of being half bitter. Like, yeah, it's interesting you're doing everything like I am. But anyway,
but Pouncey is the only center who ahead of him, according at least to the Pro Football Hall of Fame monitor, who is not in the Hall of Fame is Jason Kelce, who's not eligible yet. Mm-hmm. So Dawson, Otto, Webster, Stevenson, Kelce, Mawai, Longer, Pouncey. Yeah. Saturday, Tingelhoff. So Tingelhoff is in. Saturday's never even been a semifinalist. Pouncey and Kelsey. Center is a tough position to get in the Hall of Fame too. Anyway,
It is. It is. So we'll see what happens there. I guess what's also interesting is now we also know who the three who made it to the final 10 who got cut.
yes,
And it's looking decent for them because they're both relative. Well, the two guards, I'm blanking on the third. Jari Evans, so is there. Marshall Yanda on his first ballot. Who's the other?
hold on. I had this and then I lost it. Well, go come back.
Yeah. All right. So either way, for those two, you're in good shape based on year 2 and 1 respectively for Evans and Yanda. And since we know it's pretty much going to be the same group coming back, presumably we know what that queue is.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine they might treat centers as a totally different category than the other line positions. So I don't think Pouncey's arrival will hurt Willie that much.
That's probably true.
Or Yanda or Jari.
I mean, yeah, Yanda is best of those again to me.
I agree, but
yeah, he's also a guard, and guards take time to get in. Although, I mean, Willie Anderson's a right tackle. We elected a right
Evans
tackle.
is a guard too, so
yeah, we have elected a right tackle in a very, very long time. So, God, why can't I find it's in the article for I had it tagged and I can't find it now.
It's probably in the article I wrote, and I'll look that up here too.
Yeah.
There we go. Let's see. Sorry. This is the high quality stuff that we do here. Darren Woodson.
I know. So it was
Woodson.
Yeah, Darren Woodson. I hadn't gotten there alphabetically yet. Yeah, Darren Woodson, who a safety who is helped by Allen going in. Although I guess it wouldn't have mattered because Allen was off the ballot either way.
Well, no, he was in year 19.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, so he was in year 19. Would have had at least one more. So then the first 5 out is really interesting to me with one big name. And so I'll say the other 4 first. Wide receiver Steve Smith Sr. So we forgot to even sort of mention that along with Reggie Wayne, because these are 2 people who are in more trouble. Wayne more so because he's been on the ballot considerably longer. Terrell Suggs, it's his first year, so he's okay. And then we got Fred Taylor and Eli Manning. So now for both Fred Taylor and both Eli Manning are in the same position. Both were the first 2 cut, and both now will enter next year as unquestionably not the best at their position.
Yeah, I mean, Fred Taylor will not be on the ballot next year.
I think Fred Taylor will fall off. He's going to be either Taylor or possibly Wayne or Smith.
I think Wayne or Smith is going to fall off. Holt will still be there, but Taylor will not be on this ballot next year. There are too many people coming in, and I suspect Eli will be there.
That's why I didn't say I don't think Eli will ballot,
but Eli may be there for the next 5 or 6 years.
Which
this was
probably.
I know all the Giants fans, and again, I'm wearing my Boston shirt, so you guys can see. So I know all the Giants fans are pointing out the fact that Eli beat the mighty Patriots in 2 Super Bowls, which was a true statement. But he didn't play great either of those Super Bowls. I know he had the one pass to Manningham and the second one, and he had the pass to Tyree, which wouldn't have happened if our defenders weren't worried about throwing him to the ground and getting a roughing the passer penalty. They had him wrapped up and then let him go.
Which now would be an in the grass.
Which would now be an in the grass penalty.
Yeah.
Or in the grass sack. Sorry, in the grass sack.
Yeah.
But he's not the one who held the Patriots to 17 points in those games.
Right.
I mean, Matt Ryan played way better against the Patriots and is known as a notable loser because his defense couldn't hold a 28-3 lead. So, I mean, Ryan scored more in his one Super Bowl and has an MVP than Eli scored in both of his combined. And again, as I've said multiple times, I don't understand why Eli gets credit for that rather than Justin Tuck or O.C. Umenyor or Tom Coughlin, who are like Coughlin, who was responsible for creating the defensive scheme, and then Umenyor, Tuck, and the rest of that defense. I know Strahan's already in, but like, why are any of those guys not get the credit that Eli does? It doesn't make sense for me in that way.
And what we also learned from Clark Judge's article, and there was another one by Tony Grossi from Cleveland, who put out what they could.
Right.
One of the longest debates in the room was Eli, and this is the very thing that we've been talking about the whole.
One of the longest debates I've ever seen. It was 53 minutes.
Right, and we are. We don't have to be Kreskin or even have a spy in the room to know what was being discussed. It's the same thing that we've always discussed. Yes, 2 Super Bowls. Yes, you beat some legends to sort of do that. You're a 500 quarterback, and we're lucky to be it.
Again, and the same people who are saying he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, he never once in his career got a first team AP all player of the year vote. He was never first team. Never got a vote for first team for player of the year or at his position for the all pro team. That's the word I went for, all pro, not AP.
Yeah.
Never once in his career. Steve DeBerg has more votes for first team all pro in his career than Eli Manning. And I understand that he was up against Rodgers and Manning, his brother, and Brady and other people. You'd think one time he would get a vote during that thing, and he never did. Steve McNair was up against those guys too. And guess what? He won an MVP or split one.
No, absolutely. And we've said it before. And again, Giants fans, I don't have a problem with Eli going in at some point. Don't tell me he's a first.
I don't either. Again, I'm fully expecting it. He's a better candidate than Joe Namath, and they both played in New York.
So I think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be there's going to be a lot of frustration, but I think a lot more when we're looking now at the other side of that coin, the seniors / coaches / contributors.
Yeah, this is the part that's the most frustrating. The other part we predicted. Yeah. The other part we knew was probably going to happen. We're going to have the 3 guys. Yeah, we didn't have the 3 guys we wanted, but all 3 guys are deserving. This side is the actual problem.
Right. So they put all these candidates in the same category. I believe they had to get 80% too, all right?
Yes.
All right. So they had to get 80%, but there wasn't a maximum.
Correct. But there are 5 of them, and you can only vote for 3.
Right. Which again, math.
There's a minimum of 1.
Yeah. Math tells you how this is going to play out. And so we had Sterling. Let's first congratulate Sterling Sharpe.
Sterling Sharpe, absolutely.
Yeah. He's to me is almost my wide receiver equivalent of Terrell Davis.
Of course. Yeah.
Without the Super Bowls, career cut short. At one point, you could say that he was the best wide receiver in the game, and 3 first team All Pros in a 4-year period. So I guess he was.
Yeah, he was. For those who were not around for Sterling Sharpe, he was ridiculous as a receiver. Catching the ball afterwards, he was the best receiver at that point in the NFL. He had taken that mantle over from Bryce, and he was the best receiver in the NFL at his height, and then he got injured.
Yeah, so bad he never played. I mean, his last year, he was a first-team All-Pro.
Yeah.
He was a first-team All-Pro in his last season, under 30, and never played again because he couldn't.
Yeah, exactly right.
And
I understand why. See, he said I understand why he never went through the room because of the way things were as a finalist, because of the way they were looking at things at that point. And until Kenny Easley, and who's another one with a shorter career, and now Patrick Willis and Terrell Davis and those guys who were looking at like, hey, Tony Baselli, right? 7-8 year period, and that's all. But the peak was so high, we got to put him in. But that wasn't the case when Sharpe was going through. So I understand how he got to the senior pool. I'm glad he got out of the senior pool in this first thing because talent-wise, he was. I mean, there are very few people in the senior pool who had more talent than Sterling Sharpe.
And going back to your initial comment on recency bias, or clearly he was the biggest beneficiary of that. I think there's actually, you can make super strong cases for the other two candidates, Maxie Bond and Jim Tyrer, on the field for Tyrer, of course.
Yeah. So the Tyrer thing, again, let's just mention the elephant in the room quickly.
Well, which they did.
But they did, which they weren't supposed to talk about it. It's impossible not to talk about a murder-suicide. Like, it's just impossible not to talk about that as part of it. And and I do want to say the Tyrer family thanked everybody for getting him in, or at least having the debate about him, and said they were disappointed that some people just went out of their way to railroad the whole situation, and say a couple of people in the room like, hey, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. But the fact that Tyrer was here, I never thought he's going to get elected. There's no way they could have done it.
Neither did I. Neither did a lot of
I know we have now, but it was nice. It was good with accolades wise. He's the best player in the senior pool, accolades wise.
He's actually still the best guard, period.
Yeah, in the history of the league.
But they put or alignment with, even if I combine accolade wise, even with the current modern pool. Correct.
So there's no question in terms of that. You take if you ignore the murder suicide,
you can't. And obviously
I know, but it's one of those things, like, he was on the ballot once, got close to being elected, but wasn't elected. Mm-hmm. And then the murder suicide happened, and obviously they never brought him back. Had he been elected the first year?
No, I think the murder suicide happened and he was still nominated.
He's still nominated. No, you're right. That is what happened.
Yeah. And then then it might have been like to coin an Evan phrase, what are we doing here? Yeah. And then he never was a finalist again.
Yeah.
Despite being, I think, a finalist in his first year of eligibility. And then
he was a finalist his first year.
Yeah. So I can understand why people, I know you can't avoid that. And yeah, maybe you're not supposed to talk about all that stuff, but we know they do. We heard
and we know they did.
Yeah, because that came out. We know that with T.O., right? He was getting it was the biggest debate, the longest debate about him. Why? Not because of what he did on the field, but because he was considered a lousy teammate by some people.
I mean, that's why it took Michael Irvin was a finalist multiple times, won the final 5, and then voted in because they didn't like his personality. Same thing with Bob Kuchenberg, who still has never gotten in. He was in the final 5 twice. Yeah. Actually, might have been 3 times. Can't remember. It's at least twice. And he's still not in it. Has passed away at this point. So they do take that into account, even though they're not supposed to, and knowing that there was no way they're going to overlook that.
No. What I did a show with Paul yesterday because I wanted to get his certain take on that, and what he thought, and I kind of agreed with him. Sharpe probably got in easy, and then behind that it was probably Holmgren.
I'd imagine it was Holmgren, yes.
Yeah, because that was what he thought was one of the bigger surprises, because you kind of thought it was going to be the 2 Packers going in, which clearly didn't happen. Holmgren had, and then Bond third, and then Tyrer and Hay had no shot in hell. But Holmgren is an interesting omission. I would have thought that.
I mean, yeah. And now this is 2 years in a row they've rejected a coach.
Because it looked like a good ballot for him.
It looked like a great ballot for him. I mean, particularly with Sharpe on there. It would have been like, hey, the couple Packers going in together. And I would argue, and I don't think it's that hard an argument, that Holmgren is a better candidate than Bill Cowher.
I would agree.
And Holmgren is just as good a candidate as Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, he rebuilt, he's a coach, and then he rebuilt Seattle. I don't think we remember post Steve Largent Seattle was an afterthought for a decade and a half. And then Holmgren got there and got that moribund franchise to the worst officiated Super Bowl in the history of Super Bowls.
Right? I mean, I can't say that way, but that's true.
I say that as a Patriots fan who, I mean, the Steelers, whatever, they're a rival, but I didn't have a dog in that fight. That Super Bowl is hideous if you go back and watch it. Just the officiating was terrible in that game, and it was almost all one-sided against Seattle. And I bring this up all the time. Here's how bad it was. Hasselbeck threw an interception made the tackle, and they called him for clipping, which is when one guy blocks you high and someone else takes out your legs, which is not something you can do making a tackle in the open field. So,
yeah, I can't wait to review that game with Paul. We're
that
slowly getting there. We just finally did Super Bowl 20. I spared you that one, I thought.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But he actually thought of a good idea. He said, we're getting close to 87, so we've got to do one of those strike games. Fun. But I think with
sorry, how about Vermeil though? Is Holmgren a better candidate than Vermeil? I'd say yes there too.
Yeah. So I don't know why they didn't, because we got to figure that Tyrer didn't get much support.
Yeah, you got to figure Ralph Hay got marginal support. Ralph Hay should have been in the 20. I said this before.
Yeah.
Ralph Hay should have been in the class of 2020 when the 100th anniversary. He's the founder of the freaking league. And instead of putting Paul Tagliabue, which is dumb. And Steve Sable, I get. George Young, I sort of get, who was a multiple-time finalist. But Tagliabue did not need to be in that class. Ralph Hay should have been in that class.
1,000%. And here's my question to you. So if you're part of those committees that have put together, and you're not, and you're, because some of them I believe double up. Like you're in you're part of the finalist committee, and you're part of those blue ribbon committees. But a lot there's some people who we know are not in that room. So if you're someone who worked really hard, Buddy Parker's the person that we're going to put through. Ralph Hayes is the person that we're going to put through. And they're talking about it for 10 minutes. Well, in Parker's case, it was a lot longer. In Hayes, it was apparently very low.
It was very, very short.
Yeah. So
he's the founder of the league. He's a Canton boy. That's the reason the Hall of Fame is in Canton, is because of Ralph Hay.
Yep.
It's got to be super frustrating because they put up Art Powell and Buddy Parker last year, who were rejected. This year they put up Tyrer and Holmgren and Hay and Bond. I know we kind of skipped over Maxie Bond.
Bond's got a great Hall of Fame resume.
10-time Pro Bowler, 10 years as a Pro Bowler, 1-time first team All Pro, 5-time second team All Pro,
and a champion.
But he played before 1970. So they didn't take the time to figure it out. Chuck Howley was the guy who had to get out of the way in order for Bond to get here, in my opinion. Howley and probably Gradishar were the two linebacker people who they needed to put in. But Maxie Bond, now those two guys out of the way, Maxie Bond should be back next year.
I would hope so. I would think that if I'm in that blue ribbon committee, I got to be frustrated. If Hayes my guy, and we pretty much, from reading the tea leaves, because they don't actually get the actual votes, right? So you got to figure, okay, well, if they're not even bothering with this, I guess I got to look at somebody else. Because how am I going to change their minds next year?
Well, next year, if they have the same thing, we're going to get 2 in, and it's going to be Kraft and Belichick. And
that's true too.
And it won't. If this is where they're going to do it, there won't be any seniors going in next year. No, I didn't even think of that, but you're 1,000% right. There won't be a single senior going into next year if this is the way we're going to do it. At the minimum, what they should be doing here is have 3 coaches contributors, of whom 1 gets in, and 3 seniors of at least 2 of whom get in, and we go from there. But the senior pool is far too large for us to be putting 1 person in, because the system over the years, they're like, well, if these people were good, they would have, been debated already. Neil Smith, who we put in our hall this year, never was in the room. No. Cornelius Bennett, all-decade team, never in the room. Steve Wisniewski, all-decade team, next year's his last year, has never been in the room.
And won't next year either.
He won't next year either. Richmond Webb, in his second to last year next year, all-decade team, has never been in the room. Yeah. Like, we have all these guys. It's not like we're talking, and no offense to kickers and punters, we're not talking kickers and punters who have never been debated. We're talking about guys who have multiple first-team All-Pros, multiple Pro Bowls, determined to be one of the best players of a decade. And I understand the the problem with all decade teams, guys who start this year in 2025 and go through 2035 are going to have trouble getting on either of those teams, right? I understand there's a problem with them. If you want to do a 5-year to 5-year team, I have no problem with that either. If you want to go back and figure that out. But the idea that just because these guys are in the senior pool, they don't deserve it, it's because the system never was set up in order for them to get in there in the first place.
Yeah, and just the amount of frustration that all of these voters are going through, and they're biting their tongue. You can feel that they're biting their tongue on this. And I don't want to say that I do feel bad for them. I feel bad for other people who have just kind of realized that this is how it's going to be. Sort of the people like Torry Holt, like, I got to wait another year.
Mm-hmm.
He has to know, or has to have figured out, that if they didn't change it, there's a really good chance that he would have probably gone through.
Yeah, there's at least a 50% chance, because 2 of those 4 people would have gotten in. We don't know who the next 2 are. But you got to figure, I would say last place of those 4 is Willie Anderson, not because of anything else, just because I think that the cases for Kuechly and Vinatieri's first years are pretty good. And Torry Holt's the next wide receiver up, and they thought they had to get a wide receiver in. So I feel in that situation, Willie Anderson ends up 7th. So I actually think there was about a 67% chance they have last year's thing, Torry Holt's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. And it's got to be also frustrating for all those other guys, for like a Richmond Webb, who finally broke through to a semifinals this year. And that's great, but under this rule, now we've seen it in play, and it went the way we thought it was going to do. We're going to go actually worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a realization that, okay, this probably isn't happening.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, as soon as I saw that there was no Holt in this hall, we only had 3 people. What did I text to the group? It's a final nail in the coffin for Hines Ward as a candidate. Now, I don't think
that's right. Yeah,
I don't think you and I ever actually thought you're on record saying you think Ward's going to be
20 for 20.
20 for 20 as a semifinalist on the list, and I agree with you. But the only hope he had was getting, because you got to figure we already know the next one up, they said, was Steve Smith, right? It's him and Anquan Bolden are still on the semifinalist list, and more people are going to be coming in. If they got Holt off, Fitzgerald's up next year. Fitzgerald gets in. There isn't a wide receiver in 2027, and it's possible that it's either him or Anquan Bolden coming on, right?
Right.
But without Holt, with Holt still there, Wayne and Smith are still ahead of him. He's never going to get in the room. I don't think Anquan Bolden gets in the room either, but Bolden has more time than Ward does. So something could happen in the future, but I legitimately think if you're a Steelers fan, this vote means that Hines Ward is never a finalist for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I his path is harder and harder all the time. Who would you have actually over Hines Ward or Fred Taylor?
So if you're going straight off of statistics, Fred Taylor's argument is better.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going off of impact in football, Hines Ward was a much more impactful player in his time in the NFL than Fred Taylor was.
Sure.
So, and you also know that Hines Ward is my least favorite football player.
I know, but
hold on. But I'm saying that I think I'd rather have Ward.
Okay. No,
and this is somebody who greatly dislikes Hines Ward. It's the same argument with Megatron getting in the first ballot that my friend Brooke Sullivan made, saying, could you write the history of the NFL without Megatron? The answer is 100% yes, right? He had no real impact, but he was just so great that he got in first ballot. Did Fred Taylor's existence make any massive difference in the history of the NFL?
I could say the same about Joe Thomas.
But Joe Thomas, other accolades are so incredibly over the top.
No, I know, but I mean, can you tell the story without it? I mean,
sure, of course. Yeah. I mean, the answer to that is yes, except for the fact the guy's a 7-time first-team All-Pro.
Sure.
So, I mean, Fred Taylor never sniffed a 7-time first team All-Pro.
No, he did not. He did not.
So,
We'll
and
see.
again, and Megatron's talent and everything else, it's not his fault that, you know, he had quarterbacks who could not get him the ball and referees who did not know what a catch was. Still his,
I still remember that.
yeah, he caught a touchdown, put the ball down on the ground, and they said it was not a catch.
Yeah, then they started that football move thing after, and you knew at that point, because the Detroit Lions were such the sad sack team of the league, that the first player that was going to get hit by that new rule was going to be a Lion.
It had to be.
Had to be.
So I just, again, we're in an era where there are not that many running backs who are worthy of Hall of Fame consideration. Frank Gore's coming up next year. He's third all time in yards as a running back, right? Frank Gore was at his peak not a better player than Sean Alexander.
No, he was not.
Sean Alexander, who's an MVP, which is more than Eli Manning had, I'd like to point out, is not even under consideration. He's got 100 touchdowns and an MVP, which should have been at least rubber stamped for being a finalist. He's never even been a semifinalist at this point. I'd much rather have Sean Alexander than Fred Taylor.
Frank Gore is like the baseball equivalent of getting 3,000 hits, but most of them were singles.
Yeah.
And the 3,000 hits usually, like you said, that rubber stamp, unless you were a PED guy, of getting into the Hall of Fame. And Gore, I believe, is a Hall of Famer just for his incredible longevity. But again, the same question that we keep asking, well, that's a big thing for me. Frank Gore, maybe a couple years, you could say he was in the top 5 running backs. Frank Gore did not scare me when my team was playing him.
No. Frank Gore, here's one. Frank Gore against Ricky Watters. Who scared you more?
Ricky Watters. But
100%.
But Frank Gore can arguably say had the better career.
Again, agreed. But Ricky Watters has the problem child tag put on him. We've talked about that before. But again, running backs are a weird situation. Gore is going to be next, apparently, because Sean Alexander.
He stopped somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather have Marshawn Lynch, who was a finalist, who was eligible for the first time this year, than Fred Taylor. I'd rather have Marshawn Lynch than Frank Gore. if I had to if you had to kill the clock, right? You're up by 3 points. There's 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes left. You got to get a first down. Which of those 3 guys you handed the ball to?
We know the answer. It's Marshawn like every single time.
Marshawn every time. Same thing. Take Marshawn out, put Sean Alexander in. Who you handed the ball to? Sean Alexander. You take Alexander out. Ricky Watters. You're handing the ball to who? Ricky Watters. But those 3 guys are not going to get the love over Gore and Taylor. Taylor is, in my opinion, and I know he's got 10,000 yards, the weakest candidate on both ballots that he has been on by a long shot.
And there's a good chance that this year they believe that, because
he's not.
Make the top 10 the year before.
That I don't remember.
Okay. I think I'm correct on that. I might be wrong, but either way, it's going to be interesting because I think we can safely say that Breeze and Fitzgerald are going to cruise on. They're going to take up 2 of those spots.
Correct. And if there's the same process and there's no collusion, we're only at one other person.
So that means that, and Pouncey could very well be a first ballot.
I don't think
ballot finalist.
I'm finalist, yes. First ballot finalist. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So Gore could be a first ballot finalist, and if that happens, there's nobody new from that group to possibly get in, and potentially one of those people will fall.
Geno Atkins could be a first ballot finalist. I mean,
he could, but he won't. But
I mean, it's possible. What other defensive tackles do we have?
Yeah.
Kevin Williams, but they don't believe Kevin Williams exists.
No, he went on that boat in Lake Minnetonka and never came back.
Like
he was like a Judy Winslow. He went up the stairs and was never seen again.
Never seen again. The older brother who played basketball from Happy Days.
Yeah.
Right, Richie Cunningham's older brother went to a basketball game and never returned.
Apparently, in an outtake on the final episode of Happy Days, Tom Bosley said, "Hey, where's Chuck?"
That's funny.
Yeah.
Tom Bosley, American legend. Anyway, yeah. So
He was America's dad, not you, Cliff Huxtable, you rapist. But anyway,
wow.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's another one who might make the list now. Jason Witten.
That's right. We didn't even talk about him. And Witten's candidacy is very similar to Antonio Gates.
Yeah, Witten's candidacy is great now that Gates is gone. If Gates were still on this ballot, it'd be a lot harder.
Okay,
with
so
Gates
Witten
gone,
is probably going to be first ballot.
No, first ballot finalists. Yeah, so like the people who I think have a best chance of being first ballot finalists, Breeze, Fitzgerald are the first two. I think Gore and Witten will both be there, with Pouncey getting a decent shot at it, just because he's a center and it's hard. We haven't talked about Phillip Rivers as a possibility, LaShawn McCoy as a possibility. I don't think McCoy's going to be there. Atkins is a possibility, but those are guys who are at least going to be in the mix coming in next year, right? And we both think Breeze and Fitzgerald are going to Breeze, I said again, but not meaning that to be a pun, are going to easily walk through that door. Meaning we're going to figure one of the four guys who we just had, hopefully Holt, just because we need to get him out of there. But I can't imagine they're going to put two wide receivers in with Fitzgerald. So you got to figure then I'm going to just pick Vinatieri as the third person out of that group. Are going to get in. And then next year after that, it doesn't get any easier. We got Adrian Peterson the next year.
Mm-hmm.
We got Peterson, Rob Gronkowski, Richard Sherman, Alex Mack, another great center.
Mm-hmm.
We got Eric Weddle, who's been talked about before, Le'Veon Bell, Andrew Whitworth, Ben Roethlisberger. Like that.
I think Le'Veon Bell is the one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, I understand. Cam Newton. I didn't even say Cam Newton, who's there. Jimmy Graham. So I mean,
like Jimmy Graham, he's still. Isn't he? He's not retired yet, is he?
I think he is. Hold on, let's see. He's on the list here.
Okay.
Jimmy Graham.
Because I know he didn't play last year, but he hasn't officially retired yet. I know he had that one touchdown.
Oh, yeah, he should be off that list. He played in 2023. He didn't play last year.
Okay.
So he take Jimmy Graham off my list here.
Okay, but still, yeah, you're like you said, it's going to get a lot harder. I think there's a damn good chance that one of those five people in that Eli group does not make it as a finalist next year. And that
I think three of those five are not going to make it.
Well, four have to come back automatically. So, and we lost three, so there's three open spots. So that means there's only 11 spots.
Correct.
That they're fighting for. Breeze will get that one. Fitzgerald will get that one. Let's say Witten and Gore does.
Mm-hmm.
So by the process of elimination, that means one of the previous finalists won't advance to the finals this year.
Correct. Right. That leads us. I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't think, and I think Eli is still going to be there. I think both Wayne and Taylor drop.
I think they're the two most vulnerable. I really do.
Yeah, I think both Wayne and Taylor drop, and then it's going to be and Wayne or Steve Smith and Taylor are going to drop, or maybe Wayne, Steve Smith, and Taylor drop, and we see somebody else. If they're going through like, hey, Eric Allen's coming up on the end, maybe we need to get somebody else who's coming up on the end into the room. So maybe out of nowhere, Richmond or Steve Wisniewski or somebody gets an Albert in the room. Yeah, it's entirely possible we see that.
Yeah.
So who else is out there for the semifinalist list? I don't think Bolden's coming up. James Harrison's probably not coming up. Rodney Harrison was a finalist last year and not this year, which I don't understand. Robert Mathis isn't coming up, I don't think.
No.
Earl Thomas, not with Woodson still there.
Earl Thomas was so good, though.
He was. I absolutely. Hines Ward, we already talked about Ricky Waters. They put Ricky Waters there instead of Taylor if Gore is there. I don't think so.
Mhm.
Then Richmond Webb, Vince Wilfork are the other ones down there. Vince Wilfork may end up being your defensive tackle at some point.
20 for 20. That's very possible.
So who knows? My guess is two or three of them, at least two of them. I don't think you'll see Taylor and either Smith or Wayne. You might see a third one, the other one drop off as well. Because the last four again, the last ones were those guys plus Suggs and Eli. And I don't think Suggs or Eli is going to drop.
Yeah.
Unless Rivers makes a list too, and then Eli gets dropped for Rivers would be hilarious. Just on like a historical level and everything else level. Because, I mean, what are the odds Philip Rivers doesn't make the ballot the first time?
Decent.
I know. It's crazy. Because by the way, the year after all this stuff I just told you, the next year, we have some guy named Tom Brady. I don't know if you heard of him.
Yeah, I heard he's all right.
Some guy named J.J. Watt. Not sure you heard of him.
I got to hear more about their cases, Evan. I'm not convinced.
And then Matt Ryan and A.J. Green are technically there. So, or Matt Ryan is. I don't know. A.J. Yeah. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows exactly? But it's interesting. I would say the biggest loser of this whole thing, other than, you know, people we talk about, Heinz Ward and everyone like that, I honestly think that that the biggest loser we're going to see out of this are the guys on the semifinalist list right now, because they got to figure, unless these rules change, you're never going to get in. And we had someone who in our group who did a little thing as to what happens. They only elect 3 every year versus what happens. They elect 4 every year. Where the senior pool, and guys in the senior pool also, the senior pool is just getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And the odds of you making it, if you were playing before 1970, are almost none.
At this point, yeah. Or if anything to do with it. Played, coached, executive, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point where they may need to have an automatic spot for that committee. That committee is like, hey, this pre-merger, we're picking somebody and they're getting in.
That could be. That could be. Or maybe like with how baseball does it. You have eras. Although
an era committee.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I don't understand.
You know who else is the loser? Attendance and for the next one.
That's true too.
It's going to be probably pretty low.
We already have people from our group who've gone multiple years. Like, I'm not going this year. It's not worth it to me.
Yeah, Paul said that to me. There's a good chance he's probably not going to go.
Yeah,
and he's gone multiple years, not just to see Cowboys. He's a big Cowboys fan, but he goes because he loves it so much. And with only 4 names, you got to think of that contingent. So Minnesota with Allen.
Maybe Kansas City, because Allen played there too. He was also a Bear. So we have another Bear in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I know. I just think it's funny for accounting, because the Bears have the most Hall of Famers by far. So
will the Chargers fans show up in mass?
San Diego Chargers fans, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like
he's kind of their last guy.
Yeah, that's a possibility, and I think we'll see a lot of cheeseheads for Sterling. That's what
I'll see. I mean, we are seeing a ton of them with Holmgren and Sterling. And I don't know if a bunch of folks from Philly or Oakland are coming for Eric Allen.
I don't think so.
By the way, great job by the NFL Network with showing Eric Allen while they're announcing Sterling Sharpe on the actual announcement. They had
out, so I didn't see it. Paul told me
they had I didn't see it. I was out walking the dog because the dog needed to be walked, and it was the only chance I was going to have. Yeah. So I came back in and I recorded it, and they had the people at the end of the aisles walking up. So the first one they announced was Jared Allen. So Jared Allen came down first and walked down the aisle, and they clapped. And then they're like talking about Sterling Sharpe, and they just have the camera on Eric Allen, because Eric Allen is very easy to, even if you don't know what he looked like his eyes, he's got the African-American guy with those really light eyes, like very, very piercing black eyes. And I was like, wait a second, that is 100% not Sterling Sharpe. That's Eric Allen. And then the whole thing on Eric Allen, then they whoops, and screwed up, and they got Sharpe gunning on stage. And then they announced Allen, and then they announced Antonio Gates. But yeah, just like know what order you're going in, guys, and know that they gave away Eric Allen before he got up there because they had the camera on him the whole time, even though it wasn't him.
Sloppy.
It was super duper sloppy, very sloppy. And I will say one other thing we didn't get on. I'm also kind of excited in having seen the knock for that with Sterling Sharpe and Shannon Sharpe. It's the first set of brothers in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So suck that, Eli and Peyton. Because we could have had two sets of brothers, technically. But just the emotion that went into that. Shannon, who can be kind of an annoying asshole, talking about his brother, like he's like, I'm in the Hall of Fame, all the awards I've won, everything along those lines. This is the proudest moment of my career that his brother got in, because Shannon idolized Sterling all the way through.
Yeah.
And that whole conversation, I don't care if you like Shannon Sharpe or not, just listen to the love in that conversation. I am an easy crier when it comes to love. I'm actually tearing up now as we're talking, believe it or not. But just the love between those two people. And he's like, this is the proudest moment of my career. And Sterling's like, when you got in, it was the proudest moment of mine. And it was just like, it was completely and utterly non-scripted, genuine. Like Sterling went over to Shannon's house, and Shannon's wife's like, yeah, he's in the basement. He goes down and he goes, Shannon's there in his Hall of Fame jacket. And he goes, welcome, my brother. And Sterling goes, what, to your basement? But yeah, so that was cool. I always love the knock. It was Steve Hutchinson for Jared Allen. There's LaDainian Tomlinson, unsurprisingly, for Antonio Gates. Mm-hmm. It was Shannon Sharpe or Sterling Sharpe, and then it was for Eric Allen. It was former teammate, offensive lineman. Why can't I think of his name right now? His teammate in college. Why can't I think of who it is?
No, I didn't see it. So
yeah, it is. Hold on, gotta get it in a second here. Gotta get through the commercial. But anyway, it was a college teammate of his who ended up doing it, which is God. This is awful. Anyway, keep going.
Who was the other?
Yeah, so those were the four.
Okay.
And Randall McDaniel.
Oh, okay.
It was Randall McDaniel. That's who it was. I had to see him in the picture. I was like, wait a second, who is that guy? It was Randall McDaniel, they were college teammates, which was interesting. Yeah, that's still one of my favorite things. A lot of people are like, bring back David Baker. It's not as good this way. No. Screw David Baker.
No.
David Baker made it about David Baker and not about.
Yes, he did.
The guys. So, yeah, I think it's great. And then Jim Porter's there for the announcements. But he's just like as an afterthought, hey, congratulations, after they do all that stuff. But yeah, my thing coming out of this, and I said it in our group, is I'm hoping that, so backing up again, the original plan for this year was we're going to have the three. We were supposed to have 3 years of three senior candidates coming up. We got 3 people in the first year, 2 people in the second year, and then the third year they destroyed it and did what they did this year. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping Jim Porter has not seemed to be a reactionary sort of guy. I honestly think, in my opinion, and this is reading it as an optimist, that Jim Porter was just tired of hearing all the small hall people talk. And it was like, hey, you want a small hall? Here, we'll give it to you. See how that goes for you. And did it this year without any obvious first ballot Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. Just so people can be like, oh, wait, we have a class of 4. And they're like, hey, wait, you guys got what you wanted. This is what you wanted, right? And because everyone's like, no, this is not what we wanted. Mm-hmm. And he can go back to, all right, let's go do this the right way then. I'm hoping that's what happens. If this is kept next year, this is a problem.
And when we've seen that the hall will tinker, they're not afraid to do that. So I'm hoping that that's what we're going to see. Otherwise, we're going to have very predictable classes for the next 2 years.
Right. And we're going to have a senior pool that is going to need in 2045, just 125 seniors getting in all at once.
There we
So,
go. All right. Well, I guess we'll now move to some of the people that we lost over the last 2 weeks.
yeah. So those of you who, came here for the first content, feel free to shut down now. I'm just kidding.
Like the people who we're talking about, they shut down the last 2 weeks.
That is entirely true. So in terms of folks we lost, we did lose someone to the Beige Mistress. Agnes Coletti, Hungarian and Israeli artistic gymnast coach who won multiple medals in Helsinki and Melbourne. She won 5 golds, 3 silvers, and 2 bronzes, plus a gold, silver, and bronze in 1954 Rome World Championships, which are maybe the most famous world championships of all time, honestly. She passed away at the age of 103, which is clearly murder and not old age.
Of course.
Also passing away, you know how much I love my character actors. Just have a couple of them. Bill Birge, who do you ever watch the played as Bobby in the Ernest P. Worrell projects?
No.
Ernest? Oh, you didn't watch Ernest?
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, Bill Birge, who's Bobby in those, passed away at the age of 86. And did you ever watch Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels? One of my absolute favorite movies of all time.
Many moons ago.
So you know Hatchet Harry, the main bad guy who cheats him in the
I think so.
It beats someone to death with a rubber dildo in the beginning of that movie. But P.H. Moriarty, who played Hatchet Harry, among other things, that's the thing I know him best, also passed away at the age of 86. So from football, seeing as we were doing that, Calvin Jones, member of the 1996 Packers that beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. He passed away at the age of 54 due to carbon monoxide poisoning from a malfunctioning furnace.
Jesus.
Yeah. So he played for the Raiders and Packers over 3 years, but he was a member of that team. 2-time first team All Big 8, 1-time second team All Big 8. And the Big 8 Offensive Player of the Year back in 1992, playing for Nebraska. Calvin Jones is 54. Yeah, not the way to go, you know. From the basketball, we lost Gary Phillips, a member of the 1962 Boston Celtics. He passed away at the age of 85. From auto racing, one of the great dirt car champions of all time, Will Cagle, passed away at the age of 86. He won the Dirt Car Series Championship in 74, 75, 76, 78, and 79, as well as the Stock Car Racing League back in 1969. As I said, he was 86. I'm amazed at how many of these race car drivers live well into their 80s. Either you die in an accident or you live forever. It's very, very strange. For Olympians, Ralph Mann passed away at the age of 75, won a silver in the 400-meter hurdles in the 1972 games in Munich. Also passing away, Greg Bell, a long jumper who won gold in the 56 Melbourne games and the long jump. He passed away at the age of 94. Also won 3 AAU championships, 2 NCAA championships, and a 3-time NCAA All-American, back when you can only be an NCAA All-American 3 times because you can do sports as a freshman. But he was 94 years old. And Iris Cummings, who is the last surviving participant of the 1936 Summer Olympics. 1936 Summer Olympics, last person. Also was, after swimming, became an aviator. So, yeah. So, what?
One hell of a life there, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So she held the 200-meter breaststroke championship for the United States from 1936 through 39, participated in those 36 Olympics. Also founded the Bates Aeronautics program at Harvey Mudd College after becoming a member of the WAFs, the Women's Auxiliary Faring Squadron, and the WASP, Women's Air Force Service Pilots. So heck of a life, 104 years old.
Very impressive.
That's going pretty well.
Before.
Yeah, I hadn't heard her name before either. But again, it's amazing that there's anyone still alive from the 36 Olympics. Because you figure they had to be at least 16 to be there.
Yes, in 1920, yeah.
So, yeah, just absolutely incredible. I want to make sure he got her. From wrestling, I don't know this guy. Colonel De Beers, do you know him from the American Wrestling Association?
Yeah. He, guy named Ed Wiskowski.
Yep, that's correct.
He had a run in the Portland territory as, I think he played some evil Maharaja or something like that. But
he played an evil guy from South Africa, Colonel De Beers.
Yeah, but that's what he would become known for after. So
it says Mega Maharishi Imen.
Okay, yeah. So, but it was in the AWA in the last few years of that where he really honed on this one character. Kind of surprised nobody else was doing it. He was the evil South African. Because like that was sort of the days when
apartheid.
A lot of Americans were apartheid, but a lot of Americans didn't even know about it until like it became sort of prominent in the mid 80s. So he tapped in onto that awful character, did some awful gimmicks where he said, like, I'm not going to wrestle Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Look at the color of his skin.
Oh, boy.
Some awful shit that was wrestling.
I was wrestling in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, that was wrestling in the 80s. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see him all that much because he never competed in WWE or WCW, but he came up with a gimmick near the last part of his career that did make him some money. So good on him.
Yep. So he passed away at the age of 80. From hockey, Dwight Foster passed away at the age of 67, drafted by the Bruins and the Houston Aeros in the various drafts in 1977. Played from 77 to 87 the Bruins, Colorado Rockies, which people forget was a team that became the New Jersey Devils, and the Detroit Red Wings. Had a career 111 goals and 163 assists, but he passed away at 67. Also helped Team Canada win silver at the World Junior Championships. And then also passed away the bigger name in hockey, Al McNeil, who played for the Leafs, Canadiens, Blackhawks, Rangers, and Penguins, won the 71, 78, 79, and 89 Stanley Cups, 89 as a coach.
Calgary.
Yeah, with Calgary. Actually, all those he was a coach. I apologize. But yeah, he passed away at the age of 89. But he played from 56 to 70 for quite a few teams. I did miss a couple people from football. Just one quickly, John Heward, who is the coach of, played for the Broncos, Saints, and Patriots. Also is coach of a whole bunch of teams in the Northeast, including the special teams coach of the Chicago Blitz back in the USFL days. But a member of the College Football Hall of Fame for his time. He's a two-time first-team Little American from the University of Maine. He passed away at the age of 80. Okay, music. There were quite a few of those. I don't think I did this last time. Wayne Osmond from the Osmonds passed away.
I don't remember you talking about that.
Yeah, so Wayne Osmond, the second oldest of the original Osmond brothers singers and the fourth of the 9 Osmond siblings, passed away at the age of 73. Brenton Wood, who sang the Oogum Boogum song and Gimme a Little Sign and Baby You Got It back in the 60s. He passed away at the age of 83. Try to see what else you would know him from. Yeah, he had singles from 63 to 78, but those were the only 3 that really hit anywhere. Yeah, he was 83 years old. Hope Foy, the 5th Weaver, to go along with Pete Seeger and Paul Robeson and folks along those lines. She passed away at the age of 83. Irv Gotti, best known as DJ Irving Domingo Lorenzo Jr., the guy who discovered Jay-Z, DMX, Ja Rule, and Ashanti for Def Jam recordings. He passed away at the age of only 54. 54 is a bad thing this week. He passed away at 50. I'm sorry?
But I'm 52.
Yes. But he passed away of, he had diabetes for years. He had a stroke last year, changed his dietary habits, but then had a secondary stroke that ended up killing him at 54. But he is a very, very, very important person. He co-founded Murder Inc. Records in 98, which was from Def Jam. But I mean, Jay-Z, DMX, Ja Rule, and Ashanti is a pretty good group of 4 people for you to discover and get going.
So, well, 3 out of 4. I can't stand Ja Rule, but anyway.
I get it, but in terms of making money for your record company, yeah, that's pretty good. Also passed away, Mike Ratledge, member of Soft Machine. He passed away. The actually last founding member of Soft Machine to leave the group. He passed away at the age of 81. Sal Maida, bass guitarist with mainly, I think of him with Roxy Music, but also was with Sparks and Milk and Cookies, which I do not remember. I'll be honest.
I've never heard of that one.
But he was working at a record store in London when Paul Thompson of Roxy Music walked in. He's like, "Hey, I play bass," and he ended up joining Roxy Music as their bass player. So
that's awesome.
That's taking your shot, right? But he passed away at the age of 76, complications due to a fall. So you get older and you fall, particularly in the winter, you hit something and you just don't know. Country singer Buddy Brock passed away at the age of 72. His biggest hit was Watermelon Crawl, which hit number 4 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart, which I cannot specifically remember that song. But he also did Ain't Nothing Wrong with the Radio, I Want to Fall in Love, which was for Lila McCann. He also wrote for You Got to Stand for Something, and a few other songs, but he passed away at the age of probably 72. We're not sure he was 72 or 71 because it's not clear he's born 53 or 52, but regardless. Barry Joseph Goldberg, a songwriter who produced albums by Percy Sledge, Charles Musselwhite, James Cotton, and also wrote People Get Ready for Curtis Mayfield. He passed away at the age of 83. And the 2 biggest names out of music who passed away this week, Unk passed away for his 2006 hit Walk It Out, just walk it out. You know, that weird thing that swept internet? He was only 43. He had a heart attack at 43 and passed away this week. I mean, that's absolutely crazy that, Walk It Out does not seem that far long ago. I mean, I guess it's 18 years or 19 years ago almost now at this point. But again, it doesn't seem that long ago to me. The biggest name who passed away in music, though, this week was Marion Faithfull. Passed away at the age of 78. Amazingly outlived by almost all the Rolling Stones because she was a young girl who used to hang out and smoke weed with the Rolling Stones.
Keith Richards is still alive.
Keith Richards is still alive, and Marion Faithfull is no longer with us. But she had a highly publicized romantic relationship with Mick Jagger, was also an actress. Girl on a Motorcycle is probably the movie I remember for her but she was also a 1969 version of Hamlet. But she ended up with all sorts of issues. In the 70s, she was anorexic. She was addicted to heroin. She was homeless for a while. But her song As Tears Go By was part of the big British invasion. She's got one of the longest Wikipedia pages that you've ever seen.
Wikipedia, that could be something, Wikipedia for porn.
Yes, I suppose that's true. But she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 studio albums during her career. From 65, she released the last one back in 2021. So a big name, someone who's never, ever going to make the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but a big name in music for a very, very long
For a long
time.
time. Yeah.
I think As Tears Go By has got to be her biggest.
I would think so. Yeah.
Uh, Come Stay With Me, The Little Bird, Summer Nights. She had a version of Yesterday. Yeah, so most of those are covers. But yeah, so she passed away at the age of 78. So, which as someone addicted to drugs is not that bad, supposedly, I guess.
There's that.
Also passing away, Rich Dower, remember the 1983 Baltimore Orioles who won the World Series?
Okay, I remember him. Yeah.
Third baseman on those Orioles teams, member of the Orioles Hall of Fame, two-time World Series champion. He's also a member of the 2017 Houston Astros staff.
What was his role?
So he was the first base coach for them in 2017. So he was first base coach for the Astros from 15 to 17. Then he got ill and ended up passing away at the age of 72. At the World Series parade, he suffered a subdural hematoma as a result of a head injury that required emergency brain surgery during the parade.
You had a head injury during the parade?
Apparently.
Jesus.
Yep. So I don't exactly remember. Let's see what happened. Nearly died at the World Series parade.
Wow.
He slipped on a wet floor and hit his head the night before the parade, but didn't tell anyone. The day before the parade, he was woozy and reeling to the point that several other coaches asked if he was feeling well. He wasn't. So medical officials sprung to action, began making arrangements to get an ambulance. They assumed he was just dehydrated, exhausted, but it was far worse, and the crowds around him only made it more critical.
Yeah.
But medical personnel had to get through 3 blocks worth of fans to get him the ambulance, and the ambulance itself couldn't move for half an hour. So the fact he made it through that is kind of amazing. But yeah, he passed away at the age of 72. All right. Couple more football names who, again, I had him in the wrong order. Remember the 2-time Super Bowl champion, including undefeated Miami Dolphins, wide receiver Howard Twilley, passed away at the age of 81. There can't be that many of those guys left either anyway.
Oh, no, because we lost Mercury Morris only a few months ago. So
correct.
Yeah.
Have to see how many of those folks are left. His number is retired by the Tulsa Global Hurricane. He's also a member of the College Football Hall of Fame. Played wide receiver for the Dolphins from 66 through 76.
Well, Bob Greasy just turned 80. So, I mean, there's that answer, right? There can't be that many.
Yeah. So Twilley's 80 was 81. And also Gene Schroeder, who passed away at the age of 95, was a Pro Bowler for the Bears, played with them from 51 through 57, a wide receiver drafted out of Virginia as the 12th overall pick in the 1951 draft. Gene Schroeder passed away. But 2 last names, one very local here for football, Virginia Halas McCaskey passed away, the owner of the Chicago Bears. She was nominated as a senior candidate as a contributor for the first time last year. I think it was just hey, you made it to 100. Here's a nomination.
Yeah, it was like also showing us the preliminary ones. I think she was just on the preliminary list.
Right, but the first time she'd ever appeared.
Yeah.
So she passed away. She and I shared a birthday, not the same year, of course. But she born January 5th, so she's already had her birthday this year. I remember she was 102 years old. The kind of cool thing is her 102nd birthday was the Bears beating the Packers on the last day of the season when the Packers were actually trying. So the last game she got to see on earth was the Bears beating the Packers, I think the Packers had won 11 straight against the Bears, breaking that streak. But she passed away at the age of 102. The last surviving child of George Halas. Her spouse, Ed McCaskey, ran the Bears for a while after Halas's death. He died back in 2003. But yeah, she's been the principal owner of the Bears since 1983. And was technically the owner of the team when they won the Super Bowl. Pretty beloved around here. The rest of McCaskey's not so much.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Virginia McCaskey, absolutely. And I did get to meet her son at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He and I were looking at the he and I were looking at the draft cards exhibit together over there. So, but by far the biggest name who passed away this week, someone who came pretty close to being elected into our Hall of Fame last year, and one of the greatest, going from one of the greatest athletes in the sport to one of the greatest commentators in any sport, Dick Button, passed away at the age of 95. Yeah. Button was the person who, and I've done a couple of things on Button over the last couple of years, but Button was the one who brought figure skating from like slowly gliding and dancing across the ice to an actual physical competition. He won golds at the 1948 and 52 games.
All the worlds too, I think, in between.
Yep. So let me get to that. But he from 1947 through 52, he'd win the 48 European Championship, being the only American ever to win the European Championship. As a matter of fact, they banned him because he was invited and then he won, and they banned anyone not from Europe.
Well, I mean, the trick should have been, it's called the European Championship. So
correct.
Yeah.
So he won the 48 European Championships, 3 North American Championships, 5 consecutive World Championship golds between 48 and 52, plus a silver in 47, then Olympic golds in 48 and 52. And if you're thinking of tricks, I guess, in figure skating, one of the ones everyone thinks of is a camel spin, right?
Yeah.
And that is known as the Button Camel because he is the one who came up with it. He is. He's honestly in a revenge story. One of my favorite things is his dad brought him to figure skating, and his original coach said that Button wouldn't be a good skater, not even if a snowball could live in Hades, was a direct quote. And Button's father got pissed and took him to like the best coaches he could in the New York area, and ended up just becoming one of the absolute greatest people. From 1944, he finished second in the Eastern States Novice Championship. 1943. In the next 10 years, it would be one of only 2 competitions he entered that he did not win. Mm-hmm. That's like absolutely crazy. Starting at
Edwin Mose is good.
I'm sorry?
Like Edwin Mose is good. That streak.
Like Edwin Mose is good. Absolutely true. So he's also the first ever skater to land a double jump in competition. So at the 1948 Olympics, he did a double spin, which is something we think about all the time. He's the first one ever to land one. Then in 1952, I believe it's 52. Hold on, let me get this right, because at 52 Winter Olympics in Oslo, he became the first person ever to land a triple jump in competition, doing a triple loop, which was crazy because he had practiced it over and over and over again, and his coaches told him not to put it in because he kept falling, but he refused to, did it in competition, and landed it. So it's not an overstatement to say that figure skating is what it is today because of Dick Button and the stuff that he put in the athleticism he brought. And honestly, he was one of the great commentators in general. In the Winter Olympics and everything else. As a matter of fact, Animaniacs, often whenever they did a skit, they'd have, like, there was one where they had Yakko singing every word in the English alphabet, and the commentators were Dot and Dick Button.
Dick Button?
Yeah, it was actually Dick Button.
Okay.
Coming to do it. But it's like he was that well thought of as a commentator on anything that they brought him in. I remember that was the first time I knew who Dick Button was from Animaniacs as a child. But absolute legend, American legend. He did get in. We got 2 figure skaters in last year. Button did not get in. Mm-hmm. But he's very close and should be a member of one of our next 2 classes as we go forward.
I think there's a pretty good chance of that.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else? Or
That's it. Just Godspeed to Dick Button. I know I spent a lot of time on that, but he is like, I kind of feel like, oh, his name is kind of weird. Like, first of all, Dick is a weird name now, and Button, it makes you sort of seem not taken that seriously. And he wasn't on I don't think he was on ESPN's top 100 back when they did that of the athletes of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. Dick Button is kind of lost in the importance of where he is in American sport. I feel at this point, I just want to make sure people realize what an incredible legend and what an incredible athlete he was. So that's all.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for everyone for watching. Thank you for Soup for being calm until the end. That's fantastic.
He just walked around my legs and he's looking at me and yawning and barking, meaning he wants me to play with him. So
yeah,
when a 92-pound dog wants to play with him, you sometimes have to listen.
There you go. So we'll just bring this to a close wherever you are, wherever it may be. Make today count because take care, everybody.
Take care, guys.